My name is Harper Donnelly, and I'm 36 years old. On paper, my life looks respectable. That's the word people use when they don't want to say boring. Respectable, stable. The kind of life where you know exactly when your paycheck will hit, what day your credit card auto pay runs, and which night the dishwasher hums along at 10:15 p.m. because off-peak power rates save a few dollars a month. I own a 2-bedroom condo in the city. Nothing flashy, but it's mine. Bought and paid for before I ever met my boyfriend, Evan. I work in software project management, make decent money, have a retirement account that grows in slow, dependable inches, not wild leaps. I'm the friend with jumper cables in the trunk, a backup phone charger in her bag, and a color-coded spreadsheet for everything from budgets to meal prep. Evan used to joke that I was the most responsible person he'd ever met. At first, he said it with this crooked little smile that made it sound like a compliment. Somewhere along the way, it stopped sounding like one. We'd been together for 3 years, living together for almost 2. We got engaged last November. Our wedding was scheduled for late June. The deposits were paid, the invitations chosen, the seating chart a living, breathing nightmare in a Google sheet. In my head, everything was on track. The problem was never Evan in private. With just the two of us, he could be sweet, thoughtful, almost shy. He'd bring me my favorite tea without asking, remember exactly how I liked my eggs. We'd watch documentaries and argue about them in the kind of way that feels safe, because you both know it doesn't really matter who wins. The problem was Evan around his family. The Carvers are intense. That's the kindest thing I can say. Loud, opinionated, the kind of people who think brutal honesty is a personality trait instead of a warning label. Around them, Evan changed. The quiet sweetness faded. He got louder, sharper, more performative. Jokes at my expense became a bit. My spreadsheets, my routines, my boring stability turned into punchlines everyone passed around like appetizers. I told myself it was just family dynamics. Everyone acts different around their parents, right? You don't break off an engagement because your future in-laws are rude and your fiancé laughs at the wrong times. You tell yourself you're being sensitive. You tell yourself it'll be fine. You lie to yourself, basically. The engagement dinner was his family's idea. Not the original celebration we had months ago when he proposed. That one was small, just close friends and my parents on FaceTime. This second dinner was specifically because his aunt and uncle were visiting from out of state and needed to meet me properly before the wedding. Evan insisted it was important. It's just one dinner, Harp. It'll mean a lot to my parents. So I agreed, because that's what you do when you love someone. You compromise. You show up. You put on the dress that makes you feel like your life is under control. The reservation was at an upscale steakhouse downtown, private room for 14 people. Evan's parents, his 2 sisters and their husbands, the visiting aunt and uncle, 2 cousins, and us. I got there 15 minutes early. That's another one of my unfunny, responsible traits. I'm chronically on time. The room felt like a small stage. Long table, white tablecloths, too many glasses. I stood there for a second, smoothing the front of my navy dress and mentally rehearsing small talk. Evan's family swept in exactly at 7, loud and laughing, about something I hadn't heard. His mother air-kissed my cheek. His dad clapped me a little too hard on the shoulder, like I was one of his golf buddies instead of his future daughter-in-law. Evan came in behind them, looking unfairly good in a charcoal suit. He kissed my cheek. For a second, I could almost forget the room, the noise, the way my stomach was already nodding. Then his Aunt Brenda snagged him by the arm and started talking about final wedding dress fittings for his sisters, and I faded quietly back into the role I always seemed to play around them, the audience. We ordered drinks. Appetizers arrived. The conversation started with the usual: traffic, the weather, the price of everything these days. My name kept coming up in the form of questions that felt less like curiosity and more like a job interview. So, Harper, remind me what you do again? Uncle Phil leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowed, like he was testing my answer. I'm in software project management, I said. I oversee dev teams, timelines, budgets. And you make comfortable money? He pressed. I smiled, polite. I do well. I own my place. I save aggressively for retirement. I'm not flashy, but I'm stable. He made a face. Stable. That's one way to put it. Everyone laughed, including Evan. The laugh hit me like a tiny slap. It wasn't new, but tonight it landed differently. I took a sip of wine to hide my reaction, telling myself not to make a scene, not to overthink, not to... Harper's the type who probably has a spreadsheet for their honeymoon, Evan's younger sister, Tara, chimed in. Color-coded, of course. Actually, I said lightly, it's just a document. Yet, she said, grinning. More laughter. I smiled with my teeth and reminded myself that in 3 weeks, we'd be married, and maybe these sharp edges would soften over time. That's what I wanted to believe. Dinner arrived around 8:15. Steaks, sides, more wine. The conversation shifted to the wedding. Evan's mother pulled out a notebook, of course she had one, and started going over details like we were in a planning meeting instead of a restaurant. The venue's all set, she said. The flowers, the DJ, the photographer. I tuned in and out, nodding at the right times. My brain kept circling the same quiet worry it had started whispering weeks ago. Why do I always feel smaller around them? I'd never said it out loud, not even to myself, in a full sentence. Then Aunt Brenda turned to me. So, Harper, are you excited to be joining this crazy family? Her tone made crazy sound like a charming little quirk instead of what it actually was. I smiled. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Evan's older sister, Melissa, smirked. She says that now. Just wait until the group chat starts blowing up at 6 a.m. every Sunday. Seriously, though, Tara leaned forward. You sure you're ready for this? Marriage into this family is no joke. I think so, I said. I love your brother. That's what matters. His father, Richard, spoke up for the first time in a while. Love's important, he said, voice carrying easily over the table. But marriage is more than love. It's compatibility, partnership, being able to handle real life together. I agree, I said, and I think we handle real life well together. He didn't look convinced. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like you're in over your head. The air shifted, the easy laughter thinned. I felt the room focus on me, all those eyes waiting to see if I'd flinch. I don't think I am, I said carefully. His mother jumped in with a tight smile. Sweetheart, your father's just saying marriage is hard. Harder than dating. You need to be certain. I am certain, I said. I realized then that Evan hadn't said anything in several minutes. He sat there, staring at his plate, pushing a piece of steak around with his fork. Brenda cleared her throat. Can I be honest? She asked. And I mean really honest. The table leaned in. This was their favorite part, the performance of honesty. Sure, I said, even though every cell in my body was screaming, don't. I just don't see it, she said. You too. I don't see the spark, the chemistry. You seem like roommates. Nice roommates, but still. I disagree, I said. We have plenty of chemistry. Phil laughed. She says chemistry. That's cute. More laughter. Not as loud now. Some of the cousins glanced away uncomfortable. It would have been nice if any of them had spoken up. Honey, Evan's mother said, turning to him. You've been quiet. What do you think? His eyes finally lifted. They met mine for half a second and then slid away. I don't know, he said. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. You don't know? I mean, he cleared his throat. They have a point. Sometimes I wonder if we're really right for each other. The room went dead silent. Somewhere beyond the wall, I could hear the clatter of dishes in the kitchen, the muted murmur of other people's normal dinners. You're wondering this now? I asked, my voice strangely steady, 3 weeks before the wedding. I've been wondering for a while, he said, eyes fixed on a spot on the tablecloth. I thought it would pass. I thought I'd feel more certain as the date got closer. And you don't? I asked. He shook his head. No, I don't. Richard exhaled like he'd been holding his breath. Maybe this dinner was a good idea after all, he said. Better to figure this out now than after the wedding. I felt like I was underwater. The room blurred at the edges. All I could hear was my heartbeat and the clink of someone's fork settling on china. So, I said slowly, what are you saying, Evan? He finally looked at me. His eyes were glassy, but there was something else there too, relief. I don't think you're wife material, he said. I'm ending this. His sisters laughed. Actually laughed. One of his cousins covered her mouth, eyes wide, torn between shock and amusement. Uncle Phil smirked into his wineglass like he'd just watched the punchline finally land. For a second, I just sat there, staring at him. 3 years. 3 years of holidays and birthdays and pretending their jokes didn't sting. 3 years of saying, it's just how they are, every time my stomach twisted on the drive home. 3 years of making myself smaller so he wouldn't have to stand up taller. Something inside me snapped back into place. Great timing, I said. Evan blinked. What? I reached for my left hand. The engagement ring felt suddenly heavy, like it belonged to someone I didn't recognize. I slid it off, set it in front of him, then calmly picked it up again and tucked it into the small velvet box I'd been carrying in my purse. He didn't stop me. He didn't even reach for my hand. I stood up. The room watched me as if the show had taken an unexpected turn. I lifted my wine glass. "To better decisions," I said. For a moment, no one moved. His father's face was unreadable. His mother looked horrified. His sisters were frozen halfway between laughter and embarrassment. "What are you doing?" Evan asked, finally sounding rattled. "Making a better decision," I said. I took a sip, set the glass down. "Since we're all being honest tonight, let me share something." My voice sounded cool, almost detached. Inside, my hands were shaking so hard I had to curl them into fists. "This dinner cost $2,800, I said. "I paid for it. The wine I brought was $400. The engagement ring I just took back was $12,000. The deposits on the venue, catering, band, photographer, $18,000. All in my name, all refundable up to 30 days before the wedding." His mother gasped. "You're not—" "I'm canceling everything tomorrow," I said, "getting every penny back." Richard surged to his feet. "Now hold on." "Hold on for what?" I asked. "Your son just ended our engagement in front of his entire family like it's a game show. I think we're past holding on." I looked at Evan. His eyes were wet now. "You couldn't do this in private?" I asked. "You needed an audience?" "I didn't plan this," he whispered. "You didn't plan to humiliate me?" I said. "Could have fooled me." Melissa stood up. "Hey, Harper, calm down." "Calm down," I repeated. "You laughed. All of you laughed when he ended our engagement like it was a joke, like I was a joke." "We didn't mean—" Tara started. "Yes, you did," I said. "You've meant it for 3 years. Every dig, every comment about how I'm not exciting enough or ambitious enough or whatever enough. I took it because I loved him, but I'm done taking it." I picked up my clutch, feeling the ring box inside, sharp corners digging into my palm like an anchor. "Enjoy the rest of your dinner," I said. "It's paid for. Consider it my parting gift." At the door, I paused and looked back one last time. "And by the way," I added, "the condo you've been pressuring me to sell because it's too small for a married couple, I'm keeping it because it's mine, bought and paid for before I even met him. Something to remember when you're explaining to your friends why the wedding's canceled." No one said anything. I walked out of the private room, down the hallway, through the restaurant, full of strangers who had no idea they were walking past the smoldering ruins of my future. In the parking garage, I sat in the driver's seat and realized I was gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. I waited for the breakdown to hit, tears, screaming, something. Instead, there was just this hollow, ringing quiet inside my chest. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something that almost resembled clarity. They'd made their choice in there. I'd just made mine. I drove home in a fog. The city lights streaked past my windshield in smeared lines of white and red. At some point, I realized I'd turned the radio on, but the volume was so low I could only feel the vibration, not hear the song. It didn't matter. The only sound I could really register was the echo of Evan's voice. "I don't think you're wife material. I'm ending this." Every time my brain replayed it, my stomach clenched like I'd swallowed a fist. By the time I pulled into the garage under my building, my hands were cramping from how hard I was gripping the steering wheel. I sat there for a full minute, engine off, headlights cutting a pale cone into the concrete wall. You'd think that would be the moment I'd burst into tears. That's how it goes in movies. Woman gets publicly humiliated, drives home, sobs in the car until she can't breathe. I didn't cry. I just felt hollow, like someone had scooped out all my insides and left the shell sitting upright out of habit. Upstairs, my condo felt unfamiliar, like I'd broken into a stranger's place. The same navy couch, the same framed prints on the wall, the same neatly stacked mail on the entryway table. Only I wasn't the same person who'd walked out of here 3 hours earlier, smoothing her dress and telling herself it would be fine. I put my clutch down on the counter, toed off my heels, and sat on the couch without turning on any lights. The city glowed faintly through the blinds. My engagement ring sat in its velvet box in my purse, a small, expensive meteor that had just crashed through my life. I stared at nothing until time stopped making sense. When my phone started buzzing, it took me a second to realize the sound was real. The screen lit up on the coffee table. Evan. I watched it ring until it stopped. Then his mother. Then his father. Then his older sister. Then his younger sister. Names bloomed across the screen like a chain reaction. I let them all go to voicemail. What were they going to say? That it was a misunderstanding? That I'd overreacted? That I'd embarrassed them by refusing to sit quietly while they applauded my public execution? The buzzing wouldn't stop. Call after call, then message after message, the sound a relentless mosquito whine in the dark. My head started to throb. Finally, I picked up the phone, went into settings, and just turned it off. The silence afterward was so complete it buzzed in my ears. I went to bed without showering, without brushing my teeth, without doing any of the nighttime rituals that usually form the scaffolding of my day. I lay on my back, staring at the ceiling, replaying the dinner scene over and over. Every laugh, every glance between them. The way Evan had looked relieved when he finally said the words. At some point, exhaustion dragged me under. I woke up at 6:00 a.m., eyes sandpaper dry, pulse already racing like my body had been running in my sleep. For a moment, in that soft, unfocused space between dreaming and waking, I didn't remember. Then it all rushed back in one crushing wave. The ring, the toast, the silence. I sat up too fast. The room tilted. I swung my legs out of bed on autopilot. When everything is falling apart, muscle memory takes over. You cling to small, manageable tasks like they're life rafts. I went to the kitchen, filled the kettle, measured coffee, watched the water boil and the grounds bloom, steam curling up like a ghost. On the balcony, the air was cool, the sky still deciding between night and morning. The city felt quieter than usual, like it was giving me space. I took my first sip of coffee and only then turned my phone back on. The screen exploded with notifications. 43 missed calls, 67 text messages. For a second, my thumb hovered over the message icon. Part of me, some stubborn, hopeful part that hadn't gotten the memo yet, whispered, "What if he apologized? What if he defended you after you left? What if this is all some horrible, fixable mistake?" Then I remembered his sisters laughing, his uncle smirking, his father looking relieved. Evan sitting there, letting them. I put the phone down without opening a single message. If I started reading, they would drag me back into their version of events. They'd rewrite what happened until I was the villain, the hysterical fiancé who overreacted. I know how this family works. I've watched them do it to each other for years. Instead, I opened my laptop. The wedding planning spreadsheet was still pinned to the top of my browser, color-coded tabs lined up like obedient soldiers. Venue, catering, music, photographer, flowers, budget. Yesterday, those tabs represented a future. This morning, they were an exit strategy. I clicked on venue first. The name, number, and contract details waited like they'd been preparing for this. My hands shook as I dialed, but my voice came out calm, almost eerily so. "Hi, this is Harper Donnelly. I have a June wedding booked with you. Yes, that's the one. I need to cancel." I braced for judgment. Instead, the coordinator on the other end was professional, almost gentle. "I'm sorry to hear that," she said. "Let me pull up your contract. You're still within the 30-day window, so your deposit is fully refundable. It'll take about 5 to 7 business days to process." 5 to 7 business days. I nodded as if she could see me. "Thank you," I said. "I appreciate your help." When I hung up, something in my chest loosened by a millimeter. Next tab, catering. Same script, same explanation, stripped down to the essentials. "The wedding's been called off." "Yes, I understand." "Yes, the deposit." "Yes, same card as the original payment." The band. The photographer. Each call was its own small extraction, pulling my future back piece by piece from the wreckage of last night. By noon, I had confirmation emails from all of them. Every deposit was on its way back to my account. I stared at the cluster of unread messages in my inbox. "We're so sorry to hear this, Harper. Here's your refund confirmation." It felt surreal, like I'd just canceled a subscription instead of an entire life trajectory. The twisted part? The part that scared me a little? I was good at this. The world was on fire, and I was functioning. Making lists, taking action, doing what I always do, managing the crisis. It wasn't happiness. It wasn't even relief yet. It was just control. And right now, control was the only thing keeping me from falling apart. Once the last email came through, I picked up my phone. Evan's name sat there at the top of the missed calls list, as if he had seniority over everyone else. I opened a new text and stared at the blank field for a long time. There were so many things I could have said. How could you? Did you ever love me? When did I stop being enough? Instead, my fingers typed something simple, stripped of everything but facts. Everything's canceled, deposits being refunded, don't contact me again. I read it 3 times, then hit send. His reply was instant. My phone barely had time to return to the home screen before it lit up again with an incoming call. I let it ring until it stopped. He called again and again. My screen filled with his name like a glitch. Then the text started. "Harper, please pick up. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it like that." My family was pressuring me. I panicked. "Please let me explain." "We don't have to cancel everything. We can still fix this." With every new preview that flashed on the screen, my heart thudded harder against my ribs. My thumb itched to open them, to scroll, to dissect each apology for sincerity. Instead, I scrolled past his thread, opened his contact, and hit block this caller. The instant the red blocked label appeared, I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. 10 seconds later, his mother's name lit up my screen. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Another notification popped up. I put the phone on speaker and listened, arms crossed over my chest like I was bracing for impact. "Harper, this is Elaine." Her tone already bristled with indignation. "We need to talk about last night like adults. You embarrassed all of us. Evan made a mistake. You don't just throw away 3 years over one difficult dinner. Call me back." She didn't ask if I was okay. Didn't mention the words Evan had said. The only thing she acknowledged was her own embarrassment. I deleted the voicemail. Then I blocked her number too. A little while later, a text came in from an unknown number. "This is Richard. You humiliated my son and our entire family at that restaurant. You owe us an apology." I stared at those words so long they started to blur. I thought about replying. I imagined typing out everything I wanted to say. "Your son ended our engagement in front of you like it was entertainment, and you were relieved. You laughed when your sister said we had no chemistry. You've spent 3 years treating me like a punchline and calling it honesty." Instead, I closed the message without responding and added that number to the growing block list. By Sunday evening, every Carver contact in my phone had the same red label, blocked. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. Not yet. It was brittle and humming and full of ghosts. Every room in my condo felt haunted by a different version of us. Evan cooking in the kitchen. Evan sprawled on the couch. Evan leaving his shoes in the middle of the floor. I didn't trust myself to sit still with those ghosts. So I did what I always do when my brain gets too loud. I went to the gym. I drove there on autopilot, the familiar route almost soothing. The smell of rubber and disinfectant and stale air hit me in the face like something clean. I ran until my lungs burned, lifted until my muscles shook. For an hour and a half, the only thing I had to think about was the next rep, the next breath, the next number on the treadmill screen. Pain was easier to handle when it had a clear cause. Back home, I showered, put on an oversized t-shirt, and ordered pizza instead of cooking. I ate it on the couch, grease on my fingers, a mindless show playing on the TV. I couldn't tell you what I watched. I just needed noise that wasn't my own thoughts. At some point, I caught sight of the ring box sitting on the coffee table where I'd dropped it earlier. The velvet looked almost smug, like it knew the power it used to hold. I picked it up and opened it. The diamond winked up at me, indifferent. 4 months ago, I had cried when Evan slid this ring onto my finger. I'd thought it represented something permanent, safe, a promise. Now it looked like what it really was, a transaction that hadn't gone through. "I'm getting my money back," I murmured, more to myself than to the ring. Somewhere deep down, a cruel little voice asked, "Is that all this is to you now? A bad investment you're trying to recoup?" I closed the box and set it aside. No, it was more than that. It was proof. Proof that I hadn't imagined how one-sided this whole thing had become. Proof that I was the one who put skin in the game, literally and figuratively. Proof that I'd been building a life while they'd been building a stage. I turned off the TV, stacked the empty pizza box by the trash, and went to bed. In the dark, my mind replayed the dinner again, but this time it lingered on different details. The way Evan's eyes had flickered away from mine, the relieved slouch of his shoulders when he finally said the words, his father's barely concealed satisfaction. Little puzzle pieces I'd dismissed as stress or family dynamics clicked into place. These weren't cracks that suddenly appeared last night. They'd been there the whole time. I'd just finally stopped painting over them. I woke Monday morning with that strange, dissociative clarity that sometimes follows a shock. My body felt drained, heavy, bruised in places that didn't make sense, but my mind was sharp, too sharp. Like grief was a spotlight, and everything in my life was suddenly overexposed. I got up, showered, dried my hair, put on mascara that I already knew I'd scrub off before noon, and dressed for work. My reflection in the mirror looked like a woman auditioning for the role of fine. My phone stayed silent on the counter. I didn't turn it on. By 7:40 a.m., I was on the road. The commute felt familiar, grounding. I pulled into the office parking lot at 8:03, swiped my badge at 8:05, and walked through the halls like a ghost wearing my face. No one knew. No one knew that 2 nights ago, my entire future had collapsed in a private dining room with linen tablecloths and overcooked asparagus. At my desk, I finally turned my phone on. Not to read messages, I had no interest in that. I needed it on for work. Slack, email, MFA codes, the practical stuff. It lit up like a slot machine. A cascade of notifications rolled down the screen. Missed calls from more numbers I didn't recognize. His sisters borrowing friends' phones. Texts from unknown senders. And a handful of social media DMs from people I barely knew. Every message preview began the same way. Harper, please. Harper, Harper, this isn't... I didn't open a single one. I silenced them all. Around mid-morning, my boss stopped by my desk. He leaned on the cubicle wall. You doing okay? You look a little tired. I canceled my wedding this weekend, I said flatly, like I was reading a weather report. The words sounded foreign in the air. His eyebrows shot up. Wow, I'm sorry. Yeah, I forced a small smile. It's for the best. He hesitated. If you need time off. I might, in a couple weeks. I'll put in the request. He patted the cubicle edge awkwardly. Whatever you need. I nodded, grateful he didn't ask for details. Gossip wasn't his style. If it had been one of my coworkers, the whole team would have known by lunch. I buried myself in tasks, tickets, emails, sprint planning, anything that required steps and structure and logic, everything my personal life currently lacked. At 2:17 p.m., my phone buzzed with a call from downstairs security. Hi, Ms. Donnelly. There's someone here asking for you. A sick dread unfurled in my stomach. Who? A man named Evan Carver. My pulse spiked. My palms went cold. No, I said quickly. Do not let him up. I'm not available to see him. The guard paused. He said it was urgent. I don't care. Please ask him to leave. There was a beat of silence. Then, understood, ma'am. I hung up and pressed the heels of my hands into my eyes until I saw stars. The humiliation from the dinner flickered through me again, and panic gnawed its way up my throat. He came to my job. He came to my job. In the past, I might have softened. I might have told myself it meant he cared, that he was trying, that maybe this could be salvaged if we just talked. But not now. Not after the laughter. Not after the way he'd looked relieved when he ended things. Not after he'd let them tear me down bit by bit for years. I waited for security to call back and say he'd left. They never did. Either he understood the message or someone escorted him out. I didn't care which. When I clocked out at 5 p.m., I walked to my car expecting to feel eyes on me, expecting him to step out from behind a column. The garage was empty. On the way home, a new flood of unread messages appeared. His text couldn't get through. Blocked. But he'd conscripted other people. His older sister, his best friend, a mutual acquaintance from college I hadn't spoken to in 4 years, all some version of the same script. He feels awful. He made a mistake. He panicked. He loves you. Just give him a chance to explain. I deleted them all without reading past the previews. That night, I didn't go to the gym. I didn't do anything. I ordered Thai food and sat on the floor beside my coffee table with my laptop in front of me. I opened my budgeting spreadsheet. My hands moved on autopilot, adjusting numbers, adding the refunded deposits into the correct categories. Wedding. Venue refund. Wedding. Catering. Refund. Wedding. Music. Refund. Wedding. Photography. Refund. Ring resale value. Estimated. Pending. It was stupidly soothing. Lines, numbers, order. A place where every action yielded a clear result. Around 8:30 p.m., as I was tidying up, my doorbell rang. I froze. I walked slowly to the peephole. My heart was pounding so loud it felt like it was rattling in my ribs. Through the distorted lens, I saw a face I recognized instantly. Evan's older sister, Mariana. She had her arms crossed, her knee bouncing impatiently. Behind her, someone else stood at a distance. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in business casual, like he'd come straight from work. His best friend, Connor. Of course, reinforcements. I didn't open the door. Mariana knocked harder. Harper, we know you're in there. Just talk to us for a minute. I stepped back silently, as if she could see breath fogging the air between us. Connor's voice joined hers. We just want to explain what happened. Evan didn't... I walked away, into my bedroom. closed the door, put on headphones, turned on white noise so loud it drowned out everything. They knocked for 10 minutes, maybe more. Eventually, the hallway went quiet again. The next morning, Wednesday, there were no knocks, no calls to security, no unexpected doorbells. Instead, I found a long message from someone I barely knew, one of Evan's coworkers, who'd followed me on Instagram a year ago because we'd met at a holiday party. It was paragraphs long, an emotional essay about how Evan was falling apart and how I should not let one moment define our future. I blocked them too. By Thursday, something in me had started to calcify. Not anger, not even sadness, something firmer. Resolve. That afternoon, as I walked through the lobby after work, the security guard waved me over. "That man came back today," he said quietly. My stomach dropped. "Which man?" "The one from earlier this week. He tried to come up again, but we turned him away." I nodded. "Thank you." He left this. The guard held up an envelope with my name written across the front in messy handwriting I recognized. I didn't take it. "Can you dispose of it?" I asked. "Absolutely." He tossed it into a locked bin behind the desk. By the time I got home, even the air in my condo felt different. Heavy, charged, like the ghosts that had been pacing my walls were now sitting down, waiting for me to do something. I didn't read his messages. I didn't listen to his voicemails. I didn't open the letter. I was done being the quiet, reasonable one, the one who absorbed blows and told herself they weren't meant to hurt. They were meant to hurt. Every joke, every dismissal, every tease. Every time Evan refused to stand between me and the people who chipped away at my confidence. This wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern, and I was finally breaking it. By Friday morning, the air in my condo felt lighter. Not peaceful, not yet, but less suffocating. Like the atmosphere after a storm, debris still everywhere, but the worst of the wind had passed. I made coffee, tied my hair into a low ponytail, and packed my work bag. I was halfway out the door when I noticed something strange at the base of the door frame. An envelope, thinner than the one from his coworker, handwritten. My name looped across the front in Evan's handwriting. I didn't touch it. I nudged it aside with my foot, picked it up with a tissue so I didn't have to feel the weight of it, and dropped it directly into my kitchen trash. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. At 2:12 p.m., while I was updating a project timeline, my phone buzzed with a notification from Instagram. New message request. The preview was from a familiar name. His best friend, Connor. "Hey, Harper, I know you're hurting. He is too. Please just read what he wrote you." I closed the app and blocked him. An hour later, I got another DM from a mutual friend I hadn't spoken to in months. "Harper, it was one bad night. Evan is devastated. Maybe at least hear him out?" Blocked. By late afternoon, it was almost laughable, as if every person Evan had ever shaken hands with was lining up to plead his case for him. They weren't contacting me because they cared about me. They were contacting me because it was inconvenient for him that I didn't. I drove straight home after work. The moment I stepped inside, the quiet of my apartment wrapped around me like armor. I dropped my bag, kicked off my shoes, and let out a long, shaky breath. I was tired of being found. That weekend, I cleaned. Not the normal wipe down the counters cleaning. I mean the kind of deep, thorough purge people do at the end of a breakup or the beginning of a new life. The kind that feels like stripping your soul down to studs. I opened every closet, every drawer, every cabinet. Anything that belonged to Evan or reminded me of him went straight into black garbage bags. The hoodie he'd left draped over the back of a chair? In. His beard oil in my medicine cabinet? In. The book he'd once bought me because I'd like it if I relaxed more? Definitely in. The framed photo of us at his cousin's lake house? Face down, then in. The mug his mother gave me last Christmas that said, "Future Mrs. Carver"? I threw it in so hard it cracked. 4 full bags later, I hauled everything to the trunk of my car and drove to the donation center. I didn't second-guess a single item. People talk about catharsis like it's this sweeping emotional release. Mine was quiet, methodical, almost businesslike. But every time something landed at the bottom of a bag, I felt lighter. When I got back home, the condo felt empty. Not lonely empty, airy empty, clean empty, like the space between who I'd been and who I was becoming. That night, I showered, put on clean pajamas, and stretched out on my bed. For the first time in days, my breathing didn't feel trapped under my ribs. I fell asleep easily. I didn't realize how short-lived that peace would be. The next morning, Sunday, my phone buzzed at 9:03 a.m. Unknown number. I let it ring. A minute later, it buzzed again. Unknown number. I sighed, picked it up, and answered. Hello? A familiar voice crackled through the line, deep, stern. Richard, Evan's father. My stomach tightened. How did you get this number? Doesn't matter, he said. We need to talk. No, I said instantly. We really don't. You humiliated my daughter, he snapped. Your son, I corrected. I humiliated your son, in response to him humiliating me first. You didn't give him a chance to explain. He explained just fine, I said, in front of 15 people. You're being unreasonable. I'm being done, I said, voice steady. There's a difference. That ring. I already canceled everything. The deposits are being refunded. I'm not returning the ring. It was a gift. To a fiancé you no longer are. That wasn't my choice, I said. Take it up with your son. There was a heavy silence on the line. Then, he wants to fix things. I don't. You're throwing away 3 years over one bad dinner. I closed my eyes. One bad dinner? I echoed quietly. You and I both know that wasn't one bad dinner. That was 3 years of disrespect condensed into 2 hours. Harper, I'm blocking this number now, I said calmly. Do not contact me again. Don't you dare. Click. I added the number to my block list. For a moment, I just stood in the kitchen, heart hammering. Not from fear, though there was some, but from something else. Clarity. They weren't trying to repair anything. They were trying to preserve their version of the story. By week 3, the noise finally began to fade. Not disappear, just fade. A few mutual friends texted, supportive and gentle. Hey, you don't owe me details, but how are you holding up? I heard what happened. That's awful. Here if you need anything. Need to get out of the house? Coffee? Those messages I answered. Not with much, just thank you or appreciate it, I'm okay. But they meant something. Then there were the other friends. The ones who disguised judgment as concern. Do you think maybe you overreacted? Evan's family is just like that. They didn't mean anything. It was a stressful situation. Maybe reconsider? I didn't argue. I just stopped responding. By the end of week 3, I'd told exactly one person the full story, my friend Liam from work. We met for drinks after office hours, and when he asked how I was, I surprised myself by actually telling the truth. That's brutal, he said when I finished, the way they treated you. I nodded, swirling my drink. You did the right thing, he said firmly. Walking away doesn't feel right yet, but it will. What does it feel like now? I asked quietly. Surviving, he said, and that's enough for now. The feeling better comes later. He was right. I just didn't know how much later. Right. It wasn't until the middle of week 4, walking into the gym after work, that I realized I hadn't thought about the dinner in a whole hour. 1 full hour. I scanned my membership card. The gate beeped. My brain didn't immediately replay Evan's voice saying wife material. It was small and weirdly monumental. But the peace didn't last. Because that night, as I walked out of the gym, towel around my neck, keys in hand, there she was, Elaine, Evan's mother, standing beside my car like she belonged there. She'd been crying. Or she wanted me to think she had been. Harper, she said, breathless, please just talk to me. A wave of cold swept through me, but I didn't flinch. No, I said, move. Just 5 minutes, she begged. I'm his mother. You owe me. I don't owe you anything. Please, she whispered. He's not eating. He's not sleeping. He's devastated. You have to see him. I stared at her. She was trembling. Part of me wanted to feel something. Sympathy, guilt, compassion. But I didn't. You're asking me to see him, I said, after he broke up with me in front of your entire family? It was a mistake, she insisted. People make mistakes. It wasn't a mistake, I said. It was a choice. She swallowed hard. We weren't mocking you. You've been mocking me since the day I met you, I said. Your comments, your jokes, your digs, and Evan went along with it every time. That's not... It is, I said. I'm done pretending it isn't. Her eyes filled with tears. What about the 3 years you spent together? You're just throwing that away? They're gone, I said. He ended them, not me. You're being cruel. No, I said, I'm being honest. Something your family could learn. She flinched like I'd slapped her. What about his things? She demanded. His clothes, his books, the things he left. I donated them, I said. Her face twisted. You what? 2 weeks ago, I said. They're gone. You had no right. They were in my home, I said. He never came to get them. I had every right. I walked around her, unlocked my car, and slid inside. She slapped her hand against the window. You can't just drive away? I can, I said through the glass. And I am. I fired up the engine, backed out, and drove off as she shouted something I didn't bother to decipher. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what I was leaving behind. It's strange how healing sneaks up on you. In the beginning, it was loud. Panic, panic, humiliation, anger, sleepless nights, and the constant buzzing of blocked numbers trying to find new ways in. Then it became quiet in a way that felt unsettling, like walking through the empty shell of a house you used to live in. But by month 2, the quiet changed. It wasn't hollow anymore. It was spacious. Something new could exist there. I was doing better. Not dramatically, not all at once, but in small, steady increments. The kind of progress that accumulates slowly, almost invisibly, until one morning you realize you woke up without bracing for disaster. Work became a sanctuary again, not a distraction. I picked up a new hobby, rock climbing of all things. Me, the spreadsheet girl, scaling fake mountains with chalk-dusted hands and a harness that always felt slightly too big. But I liked it. I liked the way it forced me to focus only on the next handhold, the next breath. I joined a book club, reconnected with friends I'd lost track of during the relationship because I'd been so busy trying to fit myself into Evan's world. And in a moment of impulsive bravery I didn't know I had, I booked a solo trip abroad, something I'd always wanted to do but never allowed myself, because Evan used to call solo travel sad. I used part of the wedding refund and the money from selling the engagement ring. The irony didn't escape me. The ring that symbolized what our life was supposed to be helped fund the life I was building on my own. And for the first time in years, I felt something close to freedom. Then, one afternoon in late April, almost exactly 4 months after the engagement dinner, a mutual friend texted me, "Hey, saw something and didn't know if you'd want to know or not. Evan's engaged." I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I typed back, "Engaged? To who?" A pause. "His ex, the one from before you two dated. They reconnected recently." I didn't feel jealousy, or rage, or heartbreak. Just a quiet, detached surprise. Like hearing news about a character from a show you stopped watching seasons ago. "Oh," I typed back. "Thanks for letting me know." That night, sitting on my couch with a cup of tea and the city lights glowing outside my window, I thought about how, 4 months earlier, I'd believed Evan leaving me was the worst possible outcome. Now, it felt like dodging a disaster I hadn't fully understood until I was already clear of the wreckage. Sometimes the universe yanks you out of a place you thought you belonged in because staying would have crushed you slowly. I was grateful for the pull, even if it came in the form of a public breakup in a $2,800 steakhouse. People still occasionally asked if I regretted what I said at that dinner, if maybe I went too far, if maybe I should have kept my composure, stayed quieter, been the bigger person. No, I don't regret it. Not one word. Evan chose to end our engagement publicly. He chose to humiliate me publicly. He chose to let his family laugh at me publicly. So I chose to accept his decision publicly. If he'd wanted privacy, he should have ended things privately. Someone asked me recently if I'd do anything differently. I told them the truth. Yeah, I would have walked away sooner. But we don't always recognize disrespect when we're standing inside it, especially when we've been conditioned to call it honesty, or family, or love. I learned the difference the hard way. Accepting someone's flaws is healthy. Accepting their disrespect is not. Those two things are not the same. I'm 36, single, own my home, have a job I'm good at, friends who actually care about me, a passport with new stamps, a climbing membership, a condo with no ghosts in the closets or beard oil in the bathroom, and self-respect I didn't realize I'd misplaced somewhere along the way. I have more than I did 4 months ago, including clarity. Walking away wasn't easy, but it was necessary. And if anyone ever asked me whether canceling a $2,800